All right, hello everybody. This is Paul. I'm so excited about my guest because this man's product has changed my life. And he's been on the show many times before, but it's been a little while since he's last been on the show. This product in my hand, most of my viewers know what this is. This is astaxanthin by a company named Velasta. And we're privileged to have on a show today Sam Shepard, who is the owner of this company and the inventor of this great product. Sam, say hello to the audience.
Hello. So glad you could all join us, and hopefully we can pass on some information that's going to help a lot of people in light of the current condition we're in 2020, 2021.
Yes.
Very appropriate time for this get together.
Exactly. Now, Sam, my mentor, Dr. Fred Bishy, has been eating a raw vegan diet for over 60 years, and he's thriving. But in his practice, he meets many people that are not thriving. And he told me about this product for a long time, especially from everything, from cancer to candida, everything. It works. It helps because one of the signs of disease, everybody, is inflammation, or one of the stages of disease is inflammation. And this product is an amazing anti-inflammatory on every level. And Sam's going to explain in more detail what it is and how it works. But I also want, like Sam said, the times we're living in now, everything that's going on with COVID and all this, and the danger of if you get it in a severe way, the inflammation of it. This is why this is important. Everyone needs to listen. So Sam, tell everybody what this product is and why it's so important for any time, but today more than ever.
Sure. The astaxanthin that's in the Velasta has extreme anti-inflammatory properties to it. The major advantages is that it's readily absorbable in the small bowel. So it gets into the system very, very quickly at a very high concentration. It's that concentration that creates what's called a dose response. So at the levels that you absorb it, the 4 free radicals, there's actually 5, but there's 4 major free radicals that cause probably 90% of the inflammatory diseases. It's neutralized by that astaxanthin. That astaxanthin donates electrons to neutralize any hydroxyl free radical, peroxyl free radical, or superoxide or singlet oxygen free radical. And that stops the interleukin-6 cytokine inflammatory response. Now, up to this point, we're focused primarily on the inflammatory diseases like cancer, heart disease, Crohn's disease, type 2 diabetes, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's. They're all caused by one or more of those free radicals. And but now in the world of COVID, I'm going to relay a little bit of a story here. In December, second week in December, I contracted COVID. Now, in March of 2020, I knew that everybody's going to get this disease. Mathematically, it's going to get everybody, just like the common cold at one time or another has gotten everybody. So in March, my family was taking 100 milligrams a day of Velasta, 30,000 international units of D3, and 30 milligrams a day of zinc. And there's some other anti-inflammatories that work. Hydroxychloroquine is one that works. Ivermectin is another. These are anti-inflammatories, but they're by prescription only, whereas Velasta is not. And second week in December, I knew I had contracted COVID. I lost my sense of taste, my sense of smell, and lost my appetite. And fortunately for me, I had an oximeter, so I could measure the oxygen level in my bloodstream. And I was still 96, 98%, had a dry cough, a little achy. 2 weeks into it, on December the 30th, I had a clot form in my lung. And my oxygen level dropped down to about 82%, which was a very dangerous level to be at. And I knew I was in trouble. So I ended up going.
Not to interrupt you, but was this clot due to COVID, or do you think it just happened in general?
No, it was what's called a COVID clot. And okay. I think what had happened is I had gotten pretty dehydrated with everything that was going on. My blood thickened, and it looks like the clot formed right where my initial attack was with the virus in my lung. It was in a very localized spot.
Okay.
So on New Year's Eve, I guess, went into the emergency room, difficult breathing. They immediately put me on oxygen and hospitalized me. And I was put into a room. I felt like the bubble boy. You know, they look through windows at you and talk to you that way. But went through, they give me 3 infusions of remdesivir. And still not a big change in the symptoms, a lot of coughing. And I just felt like I had a baseball lodged in my lung and was trying to cough it up out of there. On January the 2nd, well, while I'm in the hospital, the doctor comes in. He's in a full spacesuit, which is pretty interesting. And I'm sitting on the edge of the bed, and he's looking at the computer screen. And I asked him, I said, "What's my C-reactive protein?" He said, "Yours is 28." And I said, "Oh my golly," I said, "that's high." I said, "It should be less than 3." And he turned around to me and he says, "What do you think COVID patients that come in here, what their C-reactive proteins are?" I said, "I don't have a clue." He said, "A mild case is 200. A bad outcome case is well over 1,000. He said, "We have 4 doctors trying to figure out why yours is only 28. He said, I said, "Well, come on over." I said, I'll explain it to you." So he pulled up a seat, still sit 6 feet away from me. So I started telling him about Velasta, and he picked it up right there on the computer. And he said, "We've never heard of this." And I said, "No, most doctors haven't." And I said, "It's an anti-inflammatory." And he said, you need to keep taking this. This may have saved your life." And I was released the next day. It's all, if your C-reactive protein is less than 3, which mine was before I got COVID, and you're taking Velasta and the D3 and the zinc, you're going to have a pretty good outcome. You're not going to die from this. If it's greater than 3, and you're already in an inflammatory state, or what they call a comorbid state, your outcome's not going to be as good. You're going to go through a lot of anguish with this disease. It's a very serious disease. I could see how people died from this, but I didn't get the cytokine inflammatory response that most COVID folks get. That in itself was pretty remarkable, but about a year or so, would have been March of last year, I wrote a paper on how to stop the death rate caused by the infection of COVID. And it was to stop the interleukin-6 and the interleukin-11 inflammatory response, because this virus turns off the brakes that would regulate the interleukin-6 inflammatory response. With the brakes removed, this is like a Porsche going 300 miles an hour down the highway headed for a brick wall. It turns out that the Velasta stops, the astaxanthin stops the interleukin-6 inflammatory storm. That's what this does. And it's just not for COVID, it's for any form of inflammation, from arthritis to Crohn's disease to irritable bowel to type 2 diabetes. It's all that same thing. Typically, when we get an inflammatory response, the interleukin-11, it's called NF-kappa beta, they put the brakes on the immune system so that our immune system doesn't start killing organs in our body or killing normal cells. That's the key. If that braking system in our immune system is defeated, we're going to have a bad outcome. And whether it's heart disease or cancer, it's going to be a tough row to hoe.
Wow, wow. Now, so how much do you normally take of this? And then how much were you taking once you got diagnosed? Did you up the amount tremendously, or did you just keep taking the normal amount you always took?
Yeah, I took the same amount. When I was in the hospital, they took me off of it, but they put me on ivermectin and some steroids. And so that's what doctors use, obviously, to knock down inflammation. Um, um, I stayed on 100 milligrams. I don't believe that I raised it or decreased it after that. I'm still on it now. When I got out of the hospital, I could barely walk from the bedroom to the bathroom without getting winded. That's how much this takes out of you. I lost about 27 pounds in 3 weeks. There's no appetite to it. It's a very, very interesting disease. Um, uh, Go ahead, Paul. Do you have a
Now,
question?
what do you mean they took you off of it? What do you mean by that?
Yeah, I was taken off of any supplements in the hospital.
And knowing how good it is, I mean, you think it's wise that you stop taking this?
They didn't know, but keep in mind, I was quarantined. I couldn't get access. No one could come visit. There was no way I could get access to the Velasta for the 3 days that I was in the hospital.
But if you would have been able to, you would definitely kept taking it, right?
Oh,
Regardless.
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, without a doubt.
So they
Uh,
took you off of it, and then, but even when you first got diagnosed, and then when you came home, you didn't feel the need to up the amount of dosage. You just kept taking the same dosage.
I kept taking 100 milligrams a day, and got home on January the 2nd. For the first week, I just didn't leave the house. I was absolutely exhausted and heavily winded. Then I began to go outside, doing my own rehab, walking up and down the street in front of my house, stopping once or twice to get my breath. And then after about a week of that, I'm now up to 2 miles without stopping. My oxygen level is 95, 96. I'm probably going to have a scar there in my lung from the clot. It shows up on the CAT scan, but that's there's still a lot of lung tissue left. So
There's no doubt in your mind, I mean, for the most part, that if you weren't taking Velasta, there's a good chance you wouldn't be alive right now.
yeah, if this thing had gotten much worse than it did at 68 years old, I was probably cannon fodder. I could see, especially if somebody has a comorbid disease and their inflammatory state is already very, very high. All I had gone for me was I had controlled my inflammatory state well below that of normal folks. And when I did get it, and it did spike, it didn't even get close to where the doctors were amazed that I didn't get the cytokine inflammatory response.
But that's why it's so important from a preventative standpoint to keep inflammation down in the body, and this is the way you want to do it. So you say doctors treat it with steroids normally, the inflammation. In your opinion, I mean, I know steroids work at reducing inflammation, but there are tremendous side effects. But in your opinion, what is the Velasta just as good or better than steroids in reducing inflammatory, or
Yeah, without a doubt. Steroids are what's called pro-oxidants, which means you can take it and you get an immediate temporary relief of inflammation. The problem is the steroids go to your liver and they have to be metabolized for disposal. When that happens, they generate a huge concentration of the hydroxyl and the peroxyl free radical. So they can cause severe liver inflammation, pancreatic inflammation, colon inflammation, just from the decomposition of you taking that medicine. The astaxanthin doesn't do that. Astaxanthin's not a pro-oxidant. It doesn't add to the inflammatory disease. That's what makes it remarkable. Vitamin C adds to the pro-oxidant. Vitamin B complexes are pro-oxidants. So all of the supplements that we take, we got to be very careful in how much of those. If you really overwhelm it think that more is better, that can really pose a problem for, and we see it as non-fatty cirrhosis of the liver. Um, and what we find out is they're taking, 30,000 units of vitamin C every day, wondering why their liver's damaged. There is where that you have to take those supplements out. When you do, you generate a localized inflammatory response that kills the liver cells.
Now, knowing what you know now, of course, everyone wants to take caution. If you're having breathing problems, you go to the hospital, you get evaluated, and so on. But knowing that they took you, isolated you, where you couldn't take the Velasta for 3 days, and they gave you other stuff that possibly wasn't as good. Knowing what you know now, do you believe you put yourself in a more dangerous situation than if you would have just stayed home and stayed on the Velasta?
No, I knew that I was checking out. When my oxygen level got down to 82%, I could breathe in normally, just like I'm breathing in now, but there was no oxygen getting to my brain, and I knew it. I mean, there was a point at which in my peripheral vision, I would see people talking, but when I would turn, there was nobody there. So I knew that the oxygen level was dropping and didn't know why. This was 2 weeks after I contracted COVID. There's a 2-week window there that I was okay. Just lost my sense of taste, lost sense of smell, had a little cough, but within 24 hours, it went to pot. And that's something that I think that's really the dangerous part of this, is that if you get this virus and it creates inflammation in your lung and spreads throughout your lung without any control over that inflammation, you're going to have a bad outcome.
So if you weren't on the Velasta, things would have been drastically worse. But considering you were on it, what did the hospital do immediately other than isolate? They put you on a ventilator?
No. I didn't qualify because of my ability to breathe, and I was able to maintain with oxygen. I was able to maintain my oxygen level greater than 90%. So I didn't have enough inflammation to necessitate being intubated. That was a very positive thing, and that's what the doctor.
Meaning your C-reactive protein wasn't in the thousands like some of the
That's
other people.
exactly right. I was well below anything they expected, and they simply put me on oxygen, and my oxygen level popped back up again. But I didn't have the inflammation where the fluid fills up the air sacs in your lungs from this virus. I didn't have that level of inflammation, so I could still have oxygen exchange. And then they weaned me off of oxygen within 24 hours. I went into some deep breathing exercises, and it worked. I'm clear.
And all this happened a little over a month ago.
December 31st through January 2nd.
Wow. So let me make this clear for the viewers, because I've asked you this question last year in all our interviews, and correct me if I'm wrong. Velasta will not keep you from getting the virus, but it'll save your life if you do get it because of the anti-inflammatory response that it gives. Is that a correct statement?
That's absolutely correct. And as much as I'd like to promote Velasta is probably what saved my life. But hydroxychloroquine does the same thing. Ivermectin does the same thing. These are treatments that these are anti-inflammatories from a prescription point of view that also will work. But the nice thing about the Velasta, the ivermectin and the hydroxychloroquine, you have to take every day. There's no real bioaccumulation of it. So if you miss something, you could be in trouble. The nice thing about the Velasta is it's lipid soluble. It stayed in my body even during those 3 days that, not to get real graphic, but for 2 days of me being in the hospital, my stool was still red. So I was still seeing some of the effects from the Velasta. Now the third day, there was nothing there, and the fourth day, I started taking it again, and then on the 5th day, it all came back again. But I have all 5 of my family members got it in the same household. They got nothing other than loss of taste, loss of smell. They got nothing. My stepdaughter got a little nauseous. She was in her 40s, but she was not hospitalized. And the only reason that I didn't is because of that COVID clot formed right where the virus attacked, and my body built a sac around it and isolated it from spreading throughout the rest of my lung. And so I must have got a pretty good initial load of the virus for it to do that. But the body responded. It isolated it. It worked.
Why do they say it's more severe that somebody with COVID, if they're older, they're more in more trouble? I mean, and why aren't kids? Can you explain that a little?
Sure. Children up until mid-adult life are producing huge amounts, most children are, producing huge amounts of glutathione. And that's a cellular antioxidant that allows young people to do some pretty stupid things and get away with it. Children don't get this because it stops the inflammatory response as quickly as they get it. They still get the disease. They'll still test positive for the disease, but they get no symptoms of the disease. And the virus itself appears to be neutralized before it can make contact with the ACE2 receptor on the cell to enter the cell. So the virus is stuck between the cellular material in a child where their immune system gets after it very, very quickly. And the glutathione, the antioxidant capacity, stops the inflammation. So if the virus can't make entry into the cell, it cannot reproduce. If it can't reproduce, the child's not infectious. And it's the immune response of children, the amazing immune structure of most children will keep them from getting this disease to a dangerous level, or, and the jury's still out on this, or the fact that they're even transmissible from a child. I don't even think it gets to that level. I think it's attacked so quickly in children, it can't even get to an infectious or a transmittable state. Some children, this is why children get cancer early on. For some reason, genetically, they're not producing those antioxidants. And that's a genetic issue typically. So you have childhood cancers, you have things that should be transmitted later on in life from inflammatory response, but they just don't have the antioxidant capacity. They are going to be at risk with COVID, but we don't hear much. You'll hear of maybe 1 or 2 children dying from COVID. But if they looked at their C-reactive protein, they would find that it would be exceedingly high, and they're probably missing glutathione or some of the superoxide dismutase, which is a neutralizing enzyme for superoxide.
Sure. Okay. Well, thank you for explaining that.
But everybody needs to come to grips with what their starting inflammatory disease state is, because it's going to be instrumental on whether you're going to survive getting COVID. I just can't stress it enough.
Well, we're so thankful that you're okay. The information you've been providing is always amazing, and the product you've provided, it's Velasta, is absolutely amazing. And I want everyone to get it. I'm going to put the link below the video where you can get this. Please, I've been interviewing Sam here for the last year. I'll put links to those videos below this video. And Sam, I'm so thankful on a personal level that your life has been saved. And we know that our creator's in control of everything. But yes. Wow. Well, everybody, I don't know what more to say. I know people with cancer and colitis and Crohn's, and I tell them to get Zydim. Some do and some don't. So Sam and I can only tell you what we see worked, and pray that you utilize these things. So Sam, thank you so much again for this.
Thanks, Paul.
For your story. And everybody, again, the links below the video to our other interviews I've done with Sam, and also to get this product. Thank you.
Yeah, I absolutely appreciate you with setting this platform up.